This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 189. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Rejoice!
Grace.
Hello.
Properly sorted Kodra.
I'm in the correct order today.
Tam.
Resilient souls, I salute you.
And Thalen.
Hello.
Not sorry.
Nope.
So, this is going to be a weird show considering it's like got 3 weeks worth of stuff to talk about, because we were out a week, and then we had a Game of the Month show, and now this is the first time that we've like actually done a normal show in a while. So yeah, let's do this thing. So I'm going to lead it off because I think it's going to be a very short topic. I have been playing this game called Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem, and it is a Diablo-ish game. And some backstory on this, apparently this started off as a mod for Crysis 3, where they were trying to build a action role-playing game in the Crysis engine by, I don't know, some trickery. And then they decided, oh no, we really actually need to make this a real game, and they kickstarted it, and all of that happened and I had no clue about it until, you know, a Diablo 3 YouTube person released a video on the game talking about that they thought it was pretty cool, and it's in alpha, but it's been in alpha for like a year and a half, so it's it's a Steam early access game.
It's like it's been in early access since March 2016.
Yeah. So what it's trying to do is basically split the middle between Diablo 3 and Diablo 2 and sort of Path of Exile, where it is a game without any classes, and you have a fairly simplified sphere grid that gives you abilities and builds off of various traits, and you can kind of mix and match what you want it to do. So I'm going a very, traditional warrior build, but I could mix things up if I absolutely wanted to. So on top of the sphere grid, you also have a system where weapons kind of have runes. So not weapons, abilities. So like as you use abilities, those abilities themselves level up. And there's usually an either or choice at various points along its progression path. And usually it's like the difference of this ability is more efficient or this ability does something slightly different. It's kind of cool so far. Like, it is really freaking gorgeous. It has interesting physics going on because it's using the Crytek engine. There's like a big grassy field, and as you walk through it, like the grass is kind of blowing gently in the wind. And then I have this ability that jumps up and does like a ground slam. And as I slam the ground, all the grass kind of ripples out from the point of impact. And so far, like, it seems to be a happy medium between the Diablo 2 style of game and the Diablo 3. And that means a lot, like, having us play, Diablo 2 for a Game of the Month and realizing that I wasn't as attached to that game as I thought I was. But it's definitely not as accessible as Diablo 3, but it still has some quality of life stuff.
How locked into things are you?
I don't know if you can actually respec. That's the thing, is like, I haven't figured that out yet. I have literally just been playing it today. It seems like, let me see if I can bring up a character. I don't see any kind of a respec option. So that's going to be your initial problem, is it is easy to kind of change course as you go, but
apparently there's a guy in town that will let you respec.
Okay. Like, I haven't found that guy yet. I know there's also this weird system where, like, if you find spell books out in the wild, if you sell them to a specific merchant, you get, like, a currency that you can then pour into spells to level them up faster. Like, there's a lot of mechanics in this game, and I haven't figured out, like, probably half of them, but it has a lot of the same Diablo constructs. There are waypoints that you find in the world, and you can port back and forth between them. You have a town portal spell, not a scroll. The only thing that really kind of annoys me so far is you have actual potions that take up a spot, but so it's like this weird halfway point between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. These potions refill when you go to town, so it's basically a limited number of heals that you can use. So like right now I have 3 potions on my bar, and each one of them has 2 charges. But when I get back to town, they fill themselves back up. So like I can heal myself 6 times right now, and there's a total of 5 slots on your potion bar.
Okay, so it's sort of a different approach to healing than either of those games really uses.
It's a halfway point. So, like, it's not just this ability with a cooldown, but it's also not expendable potions.
I think Path of Exile is sort of a halfway point, where you have a potion belt that refills as you kill things.
Yeah. So it really does kind of feel like this amalgam of Diablo 2 and Path of Exile and Diablo 3. But so far I like it. Like, it's... The choices they have made seem to make sense, even though, like, for quality of life, I'd rather they just went with, like, a heal spell on a cooldown. It is a hell of a lot tougher than Diablo 3 starting out, or, honestly, Diablo 2 starting out. There's been several times that, like, it's taken me several attempts to get through a boss, just because they deal a lot of damage. The interesting addition that this game has is you have a dodge on space. So, and that's just like a default ability. You can roll out of the way of things. So you really need to be rolling out of the way of attacks, which is honestly like something I'm not really used to doing other than on a Demon Hunter when I have Vault. And you have a stamina bar that denotes how many times you can roll away. And it's actually like a sequence of, I think, 4 pips. And each one represents a dodge. So you can dodge 4 times in a row, and then they regen slowly as you're playing. Your health does not regen at all by itself. So, but it has the Diablo 3 thing going on where, like, if you are constantly killing trash mobs, you are getting stamina spheres and Umbra spheres, which are what the mana is called, and rage spheres, and health globes. So the need for an auto regen type system isn't that bad. You just go kill some stuff and heal back up. Anyway, like, it was interesting enough to when I watched the video on it that I decided to give it a shot. And it's in alpha right now, and it's actually really cheap. So it's like $20, which I find cheap for a game. And it doesn't like seem to be terribly buggy, so I mean, it's interesting. I happen to be playing it right now as we're podcasting. The visuals honestly kind of remind me of Titan's Quest.
Titan Quest is a really, really weird example.
Yeah, I mean but as compared to some of the other Diablo-y games, it was really pretty. The other weirdity with this game is you have a rotatable camera if you so choose. You don't actually need to rotate your camera, and in fact, I don't ever rotate my camera because that feels weird. But you basically like hold it in your middle mouse button and you can rotate around 360. I would assume probably on some boss fights you want the camera to be angled in a certain direction against where the arena's at. But anyway, I am impressed with the game, and I will be interested in seeing how it develops. They have like a big roadmap.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested to check it out because it sounds intriguing from your description.
Yeah, of all of us, I think, Grace, you're the one who it's most down your alley. So, Kodra, you have been traveling, and you have been using your Switch on the go.
It's true. So this was sort of my first experience with traveling and having a Switch. And I know Tam's mentioned it in the past, but it's really a surprisingly useful tool for that. Like, the ability to play Mario and Rabbids while I was, like, in flight and not have to worry about getting bored on airplanes was really, really nice. It's definitely what their marketing sort of billed it as is this very versatile console, and the reality sort of bears it out. That absolutely is. The Switch is great at being a mobile device. Also, Mario v. Rabbids is really, really fun, and I think it's doing a lot of really creative things. Like,
so how much battery life were you managing to get while you were traveling?
I managed to get 1.5 flights worth, so like 5 hours probably.
That's not bad.
No, like it's more than most mobile devices.
And I guess in theory you could have taken an external battery pack with you to charge it while you were going.
Could have, and I did take a charger, so like if there was ever a charging station, I could plug in and get juice pretty quickly. And the game I was playing is Mario and Rabbids, and that game is doing a lot of interesting things. I played a lot of XCOM, and I know that it gets compared to XCOM a lot, but XCOM is...
There's a pretty good reason for this.
That game is so weird, and it absolutely is XCOM, just with a different design aesthetic.
Well, not just a different design aesthetic, there's some mechanical differences. Like, XCOM is very much going for this feeling of, like, impending dread and, like, unexpected tragedy.
Sorry, that's what I meant by design aesthetic. Like, it's going for a different feeling.
Yeah! So, like, even your best shot has a, like, marginal percentage of failure, in which case somebody's probably going to get killed. And, like, you're probably going to have spent a lot of effort on that person. And hey, maybe things in XCOM snowball so far out of hand that you just... Your save file is doomed. You aren't going to be able to dig yourself out of the hole you've put yourself in, and the world is going to end. That's not the aesthetic of Mario v. Rabbids, even though it's like the same functional thing. The fact that your numerical breakdowns are 100%, 50%, and 0%, and they tell you, like, from each angle what those are going to be, really makes the game more immediate. Like, you can plan out what's going on, and it's really satisfying to sort of build your machine and just watch it all work. Like, there's a whole lot less randomness in that game, and the randomness is an intentional part of XCOM, and it's a lot of fun playing XCOM without that, like, looming sense of dread.
That game is so much better than it has any right to be.
It's very good. Surprisingly deep, too. I'm kind of hoping... I kind of am curious to see if the challenge modes ramp up eventually. Currently, I'm getting to the point where they've given me enough PowerPoints that I've been able to optimize my team, and they just steamroll everything. But that's probably what the game's intention is. It feels great. Like, Rabbid Luigi going in and doing a double slide for like 160 damage and vamping back up to full health. So good.
About how long are the game sessions in Mario vs. Rabbids?
I mean, you could play, like, it depends on how much time you have. A single, like, level, battle would probably be, like, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe? Probably closer to 10. Maybe less.
I don't know what you're doing, but around 10 minutes.
They're pretty quick.
Okay.
And it's got a co-op mode that I'm really excited to try at some point. It's very goofy, though. The game is incredibly goofy.
It is very good. Yes, it is very goofy.
But it somehow works, and Rabbid Peach is like my favorite character.
I find the normal Luigi to be a pretty great character as well.
Normal Luigi is a sniper.
He's a sniper with a little bot that can also kill things, and also tends to draw fire for you.
Yeah, I do use that bot to try and trigger Overwatches a lot. Also, so all of the human characters have Overwatch as one of their skills, and all of the Rabbids have a shield as one of their skills. But at this point, like, I am still mostly using Rabbid Peach, Rabbid Luigi, and Mario, because Rabbid Peach can help you survive basically anything, and Rabbid Luigi can do a ludicrous amount of damage and not die to anything.
So, Tam, I know you've been playing a lot of Nier Automata.
That is a weird game, and
Yeah.
I love it.
And I pronounced it that way on purpose because we had this entire discussion on how to pronounce it.
Like, so this game almost lost me in its first hour. It got real close because I'll get to why in a second. It drops you into a game that looks kind of like Ikaruga. Like, it's a bullet hell shooter, a top-down bullet hell shooter, and I'm like, all right, this isn't what all of the screenshots looked like, but sure. And then it switches to, like, a Star Fox style, or, like, more like Geometry Wars style bullet hell shooter. And then it switches to this, like, Star Fox thing, and then it turns out that you're this, like, lady android in a, I don't know, robot plane. And you hop out of your robot plane and start cutting up people with a sword. And now I've played like 4 genres of game in the first 10 minutes, and I'm fighting basically lots of robots and doing some bizarre mix of like Castlevania style platforming and Devil May Cry style like hack and slash action, and it's seamlessly blending between these two things, and it hasn't stopped being a bullet hell shooter at some points. Which is kind of the point at which my brain checked out of trying to make sense of this game and just went with it. And then it throws you against a mini boss, and the mini boss is pretty hard, but you can beat it. And then it throws you against a bigger boss that is 2 of those mini bosses at the same time working together, and it killed me because it was hard. And then the game was like, "Oh, game over. Would you like to start a new game?" Which is the point at which I nearly quit, because I'd been playing the game for like almost 2 hours at that point, and then I died, and then it wanted me to start the entire thing over.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not very friendly.
No.
Did you actually have to start the whole thing over?
I did, in fact, actually have to start the whole thing over.
Oh.
100% started the whole game over. Cutscenes, unskippable dialogue and cutscenes and everything. And I was
That seems like nonsense.
And I was like, "Oh, game, you are real lucky that everyone I've talked to thinks you're amazing, or I would put you down and never pick you up ever again." Because that is not letting me save. And it tells you up front, like, it tells you as you go in, like, this game does not support autosave. And it doesn't autosave ever. And there's no way to save prior to beating that first boss. And so the second time through, I paid a little bit more attention to the controls. I learned how to dodge. I learned how to I learned how to lock on target things, which hadn't been like super necessary, but it meant that I just blazed through it. It took me about 90 minutes ish to clear that level the first time, and it took me about 45 minutes the second time. Just because I knew where the stuff was, I knew what was going on. I had a much better understanding of how the mechanics actually worked. And so when I finished it and it drops me into the game proper, I had some idea of what I was doing. I don't think it's the best way to ensure that basic level of skill. And my biggest issue with the game is its fetishistic disregard for saving. But it's also this sort of fascinating post-apoc fighting robots on old Earth. You're some kind of android you're like a Terminator with a personality, and I'm not sure who thought it was a good idea to instill a personality into these various like hyper deadly combat machines, but I'm pretty sure it was a mistake. But on the other hand, it's weirdly charming because you have your like Siri style autonomous hover drone helper bot, which is constantly stating the obvious, like the painfully obvious, and your character responds to having the painfully obvious stated to her poorly. She does not have a lot of patience for people being dumb, including her partner, who I hate, is largely useless combat model who, frankly, he brings down my overall style points of this team by a significant margin. I am highly stylish, and he is wearing short pants.
He's just trying to imitate your style.
Well, he shouldn't.
And that's not something he should ever do.
No, it's a problem. And then you have like your handler or his handler, some operator who's your eye in the sky character, who is also an android and is like super gay and incredibly adorable. And like 80% of my motivation to do side quests in that game is doing favors for her because she's like a complete sweetheart and amazing. She's bubbly. She's this bubbly, like excitable, sort of hyper curious character, which plays off of your really taciturn, like no time for games combat robot. She calls you early in one of the early missions. She like calls you for a regularly scheduled check-in and goes off on these tangents. You have the dialogue is great. It's just all kinds of weird. It is an incredibly weird game. I'm still sort of wrapping my head around it. But it's also got really satisfying, like fast-paced combat that I feel like I can keep up with. It's like I'm pulling off combos and dodging around enemies and dodging just impossible looking situations, but I'm doing it and winning. Like, oh, here's a room full of 50 enemies that are all shooting at you. That's fine. We can handle this. It's just it's got incredibly weirdly soothing music. It's got a cast of mostly charming characters. It's got a really weird sense of humor that I love, even when it frustrates me. I got a quest at one point that was you run into a character who is kind of like your bad ideas experimenter character. Just like everything she does is maybe not a great idea, and she's constantly roping you into helping facilitate her terrible ideas. And mostly you're the one in direct harm's way for her bad ideas. And at one point she's like, hey, I caught this fish and I want you to try to eat it. I'm like, all right. I mean, sure. Okay. So I go down, walk up and pick up, and she like hands you a fish. She's like, go ahead and eat it. And it's in my inventory. I'm like, all right, sure. So I ate this fish and I die.
What?
I just die. Like, she says like, hey, this fish does like weird things to androids, and so it's not my fault if you die, but you know, haha. But she said that kind of thing before. So I eat this fish and I die, and I get the like game over screen. I'm like, what? I have also killed myself by selling my CPU at a vendor, self-destructing. Like I flipped the little self-destruct switch. That was a bad idea. Yep, totally a thing you can do. I've died in a variety of just like real weird, questionable ways. It uses one of the like equipment. You have equipment in the sense of like swords and stuff, like your weapons. But then in lieu of armor, you have these programs, and it's actually a really neat system because one of the upgrades you can buy is more RAM, basically. And more RAM lets you run more simultaneous programs. And all of these programs let you do various useful things. Like, let's see. There's, plus to attack, plus to health, standard things. There's your health regenerates when you haven't taken damage for a certain amount of time. I really like that one. Your gun is more powerful. You restore health on killing enemies. That's another fun one. You dodge further. Your health shows up on the UI. You have a mini map. That's when you can slot in. If your health gets too low, it can auto potion you. That's a good one. You can see your XP bar. That's another program.
So if you wanted like more attack, you could remove the ability to see your XP bar.
Yeah, like your core programs, basically every UI element, every individual UI element is a program that's loaded into your system. And you could just uninstall. I mean, other than your core operating system, which by the way, don't uninstall. You can uninstall basically the entire UI if you want to replace it with combat programs. There's even other UI programs you can buy from vendors in the game and install. Like if you want to see fishing spots, or the aforementioned XP bar isn't a default one, you buy that and plug it in yourself.
So you can see fishing spots to catch fish that will kill you?
Yeah, you can catch that fish. You can catch other fish too, but don't eat fish. You're a robot.
This game sounds really, really weird and really, really funny.
It's funny. It's like
I didn't realize prior to discussing this with Tam slightly earlier that this is the direct sequel to Drakengard off of one of Drakengard's more ridiculous endings, particularly the one where you get shot down with a missile.
Yes. The ending in question apparently then involves a battle between a dragon and a crying statue.
yeah, it's a weird game. Like it's an aggressively weird game. But it's also weirdly charming. Like I don't know.
So does this game take place on the world that the dragon came from, or on the real world?
Takes
where
place
the
on
dragon
Earth.
Okay.
It totally takes place on Earth.
Okay, so this takes place on Earth after a dragon beat up a giant crying statue and then got shot down with a missile over Tokyo. Got it.
Yep.
Sure.
Look, Drakengard was also a weird game.
Yeah, but like it's another one of those weird. It's a weird post-apoc. The apocalypse in this case was the robot revolution, I think, sort of. I have a lot of reason to distrust basically everything everyone has told me in the game so far, with a couple of exceptions. Like the operator who I like quite a bit, who I'm pretty sure is incapable of actually lying. I'm inclined to believe, but she also doesn't really weigh in on things. And like basically everybody else, I'm not really sure I trust. They'll tell me things definitively, but I don't think it's necessarily a good idea. But it's been an incredibly soothing game to play. It's actually the only game I've played in recent memory, possibly ever, where I caught myself kind of catching the flow, but not quite getting there. So I bumped the difficulty up so that it would pull me in more. And so now that I'm playing on hard and actually like forced to use all of my abilities and, you know, really think about how the combat works and how it flows and what weapons I'm using and so on, it paired with the music is really soothing. And on the other side of things, PS, one of the main reasons I stopped trusting everyone I talked to, all of these supposedly good guys, was I'm fighting a bunch of robots, and the robots are using their like robot voices to say things like, "We are scared, please do not hurt us." And my supposed partner is like, "Ugh, I'm so tired of robots just piping nonsense through their voxes." And I'm like, pretty sure that's not what's happening here. They're like, "Oh, the robots just talk nonsense. They're just imitating things they're like imitating announcements and putting random Vox recordings together."
They don't actually have emotion. They're just able to simulate it very well to try and trick you into not destroying. Don't fall for it.
Yeah, your partner is terrible. Basically, I hate that guy. I fought a giant like skyscraper-sized robot and broke it, and then had a chat with it later on. Like that was weird. There's a lot of weird. I mean, there's the one of my favorite places in the game is the like all broken down amusement park that has been semi-restored by robots who are like throwing parades and wearing like jester hats and dancing. They won't attack you, but you can just go to town and like cut them up with your sword if you're a monster, I guess.
If you're a horrible human being.
Like you wander in here and you're like, that's a robot with a weird little jester hat. Like it's loaded up its cannon. It's got like it's the same robots that you see elsewhere. They're just wearing like a hat, and it's got like the gun body that it's strapped to, and it's just shooting balloons out of its gun body and like confetti.
Seems legit.
At one point you're like making your way through this thing, and this tank rolls up that's got like 40 guns on it and is staffed with a crew of robots, and they're all just like singing and throwing confetti and shooting balloons out of the cannon. And I saw this thing and I'm like, I don't have a particular need to blow this thing up. I'm gonna go continue moving forward. And your partner's like, are you just gonna leave that tank? And I'm like, dude, it's shooting balloons and all the robots in it are just dancing.
It's a t-shirt cannon tank.
Yeah, like I'm really unconcerned about that thing. And then a robot warned me that there were broken things that weren't functioning properly past him and that I shouldn't go past them. So I
promptly went past him.
I promptly went past him and effected some repairs.
Did the repairs involve destroying stuff?
Oh yeah. I have a limited number of ways in which I can interact with my surroundings. I can run around and jump over them. I can fish. Or I guess I don't really fish. I lean up against a chair and some like weird holographic chair and send my floating robot to do the fishing for me while I sit around looking petulant or bored.
That's an important part of fishing.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got it nailed. That's the basics.
Yeah. So, fishing and then blowing things up with style. Like, those are my primary interaction points. Recently, I've added taking pictures of flowers for the operator to that list.
So this is Beyond Good and Evil now?
I mean, sure. This game is a lot of things, and I have given up trying to categorize it.
Seems fair.
Like, something like 8 hours into the game, it was like, hey, are you going to play Star Fox now? Like, what? Like, proper, you're flying from behind your ship, shooting things, Star Fox. That's just a thing you're doing now.
The game continued to, like, switch genres on you?
Most of my time is spent on foot, but on foot switches genres a decent amount. Like, just on foot, I've played Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is probably the best, or Bayonetta.
Given who's behind it, that's expected.
Yeah, like, that's the most common one, but there's also, like, Castlevania-style side-scrolling, and I played a boss that was basically Street Fighter, and I've also played some, like, Zelda-style dungeon crawls from the top-down perspective, sometimes all in about a 10-minute span. It defies classification.
Isn't there a boss in the game hidden that's like the president of Sony or something?
It wouldn't surprise me at this point. There's very little this game could do that would surprise me at this point. Every time you die, it gives you, like, it takes you to the credits, but the credits flash by in like a second and a half at super high speed with sped up audio and everything. And you get a little letter that's which endings you've seen. And I'm kind of wondering if the endings spell something when you're done, if you get them all. But, like, dying because I ate a fish added an ending to my save file. Like, added an ending letter.
The major ones are A through E, so I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, there may be a whole bunch more ways to die stupidly than I realized then.
I mean, if you're going to do that in your game, it makes sense to have a lot of them.
But yeah, it's definitely not taking itself seriously while also kind of taking itself seriously.
Honestly, all the goofy, like, death endings makes me think of half the fun of old Sierra adventure games.
Yeah, just don't forget to save first.
Well, I mean, that was the rule back then, too.
It's true. My biggest complaint with the game, because I actually really, really enjoy it, and it's a ton of fun. And I want to play more to find out what the hell is going on, because frankly, I have no idea what the hell is going on. I have exactly enough context to be confused by the story, but I also have enough context to be interested in what is actually going on, because what appears to be going on is not what I think is actually going on. But my sole complaint with it is there is absolutely no reason that it should be as dumb about saving as it is. Especially because you can save at save points, which are also fast travel, which also later become fast travel terminals. P.S. It's kind of annoying to wander around the game world before those become fast travel terminals. And you can save at those before you go to travel, and there's absolutely zero reason that the game could not just auto-save when you travel via one of those. It just chooses not to. I think that is a dumb choice. I think that it is possible, as mentioned elsewhere, I think it is possible that to do interesting things with save states in games such that you don't allow auto-saving for good reasons, but this is not doing any of those.
When I think about doing interesting things with saves, Undertale comes to mind, because Undertale will save for you even if you don't tell it to. but it only actually lets you resume your progress where you saved.
Yeah, and I think in some ways that works. I'm actually thinking of games. I'm actually thinking of like roguelike style games where you make permanent progress even if you aren't explicitly saving it as saving your progress that run. I think that can be interesting, where you might just like go on a foray but not save because you're going for some other reason. I don't know. I think a modern game lacking autosave is making a mistake, and it would be a hard sell to convince me that a game is intentionally not including autosave for any reason other than for the designers to act like they are adding difficulty or cleverness where in lieu of actually doing so. But despite that, I love Nier Automata. Like, I really enjoy that game despite the unforgivable crimes it has actually committed against me. Because I don't forgive it for its saving nonsense, but I'm willing to look past it because of all the other good stuff it's doing.
So, Kodra, I know as part of your traveling, you got in a ton of board gaming.
Yup. So this currently going on in Atlanta is Game-O-Rama, which is 4 days completely dedicated to playing board games. And I have learned a whole lot of new games. And a standout, which I've discovered was like the play group I was playing with back in Atlanta sort of treated it like we used to treat Through the Ages, in that they claim to have over 400 plays of it now, which, given that we played it 4 times in 2 days, I can kind of believe happened. Terraforming Mars is fantastic.
So what's going on in that game?
You are a bunch of different corporations who are tasked with terraforming Mars, and you are trying to bring in resources and provide technology and various activities to claim the most credit for terraforming Mars and rendering it a beautiful place to live. It's a game where you have a hand of cards that either have a one-time benefit or a persistent benefit, and you are trying to get all of these cards to work together to ultimately give you more and more ability to get Mars into a habitable space and earn points. And what I enjoy is that there is a drafting mechanic to it. So the cards you are getting, you are, like, each turn you are looking at 4 cards and drafting them around the table. And you have to pay resources to keep a card. But if you look at a hand of cards and realize you don't want anything in there, or you just see something in there that would be game breaking if one of your opponents got it and completed their engine with it, you could just take that card and not select it and save yourself some resources. So it's very much a game of competitive drafting constantly throughout the game. And I was still pretty green in that I didn't have the 200 card deck memorized like some of the people I was playing with, but it still felt pretty tight to me. Most of the games were still pretty close. And the other game I played was Dinosaur Island, which is competitive Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
You have a bunch of different players who are running dinosaur theme parks, where you are bringing new dinosaur exhibits for your customers to watch, and also trying to manage, security levels to make sure that the dinosaurs don't break out and eat your customers. My experience with this game was kind of traumatic, and I've only ever played it with 4 players, and I kind of don't think that game works well as a 4-player game, because there is a big disadvantage to going last in the first turn. And there's just a general disadvantage, like, it's a huge disadvantage to be last every turn. So trying to manage the turn order is important, and the way you determine turn order is how many points people have. So every game I spent the first couple of turns feeding my customers to dinosaurs to make sure that I was getting first bid on stuff in the subsequent turns. And it's stuff like that I don't like in some of these board games because it's kind of counterintuitive gameplay. Like, they want it to be a catch-up mechanic, but it's such a powerful catch-up mechanic that I intentionally do silly stuff like let my customers intentionally get fed to dinosaurs.
Remind me not to go to your dinosaur theme park.
It's fair. But at the end, you have a couple of hiccups early on, and then at the end you have a lovely exhibit with a whole bunch of Tyrannosaurus Rexes, and nobody gets hurt. Because I've had enough time to beef up security. It gets better.
I mean, I don't feel like that's...
Don't be an early adopter, I guess.
Yeah.
Don't be an early adopter of dinosaur theme parks seems like a really good life advice.
I mean, they do call it the bleeding edge for a reason.
Yeah.
Like in board games as in real life, maybe don't be the first person to go to a dinosaur-based theme park.
So another thing that happened this week is Final Fantasy XII Zodiac whatever came out.
Isn't it?
I legitimately don't remember the name of it. It's Zodiac something.
Zodiac Age?
No.
Yeah, probably? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes, it's Zodiac Age.
So there's some interesting things going on with that port of the game. Firstly, I was able to use a PS4 controller without any issue, but then again, it's Steam, and usually you can do that. The controls were by default set up to what I kind of mentally term as Japanese PS control scheme, which is the same as Nintendo. So your accept button
weird.
is O, and your cancel button is X.
Ah, yes.
Which is
the
exactly the
logical.
same. Which it's exactly the same as the when you played import PlayStation game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because the symbols actually had some meaning. I have no idea to this day why they got reversed when they came over here.
Nope, me either. But it ends up being that everyone uses that scheme now except for Nintendo. And now Nintendo is the game that I always have to kind of fail a little bit when I first pick up a game to remember, oh yeah, no, it's backwards from what I'm used to.
I had that going on a lot when I was playing Gundam Breaker. Anyway,
But
though, Final Fantasy.
Once I got used to it, like, it's a really good port, and the game is really freaking pretty. Like, whatever they did to remaster it, it looks gorgeous. I probably played 6 hours or so today.
I think that it benefited from being a late PS2 game. It did look fairly good for a PS2 game.
Right, yeah, I remember thinking this doesn't look like a PS2 game. I mean, so far, Van doesn't bother me as much as I remember him bothering me when I first played the game.
You'll get there.
Yeah. That was my experience, too.
Like, you can get past that, and then it's fine again, but you'll get there.
Also, the game requires more grinding than I remembered it requiring.
Really?
Yeah, because, like, it feels like I'm super weak against certain things. So I've been grinding to kind of fix that problem. Right now I've got Van as a knight and Pinello as a white mage.
I had him as a whatever the gun using class is, and her as a red mage. I think she eventually picked up white mage for me, but she started with red mage because that was more immediately useful.
It's been a weird case of me trying to remember how that game worked.
Those classes didn't exist on our PS2 version.
Well, yeah, but like with the gambits and things like that.
Yeah, that also reminds me. Gambits are in the shop, but they aren't locked anymore. Like, all of the ones you might want to buy are immediately available to buy, which also
Pending
made
you
the
have
game much
money.
more... Well, yes. That is a thing I had to grind for. But you no longer just arbitrarily have, no, you can't use this on somebody who has less than 20% of their HP because you haven't unlocked that yet, which was a big improvement for me. The other thing is the ability to, if you care to, just completely speed up and automate your grinding.
Yeah, so you can just turn on gambits for you.
Yep.
And just walk around and let it auto-attack.
You can also turn, like, ×4 speed.
I didn't remember the big stompy dudes being as nasty as they are.
The big T-Rex looking things?
No. The weird, like, really tall-legged, I don't know,
near the Gareth village.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are a problem.
Those
come
things
back
are
there
brutal.
later. You come back for those later.
But all in all, it's a good port, and I'm happy to be playing it again, because I never made it through that game, in part because I was playing it up at the lake, and we were only up there 1 or 2 weekends a month, so it was very hard to have consistency. But speaking of Final Fantasy things, Final Fantasy XIV patch this week.
Yay!
Yay!
And I don't know how many people have actually done much in there, but I hear Sigmascape is great.
I have not yet gone into Sigmascape.
I wouldn't know.
I don't know either.
Item
I
levels
can't
are
get
a
there.
thing. I unlocked it, but I can't actually go in.
Same. This will be
I mean,
for me in
unlocked it.
relatively short order when I basically I need to do Ravenmaster and get a little bit more of the current tombstone, whatever that's called. I don't actually remember what it's called.
Yeah, I essentially have to do the same thing. My impression so far is that the catch-up for this patch should be relatively painless. I guess I'll see in practice. I haven't actually been super motivated to do the catch-up yet, but I do want to see the new raid. But it at least it feels like I didn't end up in one of those horrible gaps where I can't even run the expert roulette, and I can't do any of the things that would actually let my gear start to catch up. Like right now, I can do the new dungeons, and they give gear that's essentially the level you need to get into the new raid, and Rabanastra gives gear that's like 5 levels higher than that. So there's seems to be plenty of ways to catch up, which is relief.
Despite, I feel like they really made that better this time around, because despite also not playing for quite some time, it was relatively easy for me to catch up and at least be able to get into the stuff I hadn't done.
I'm way further behind than the rest of you, I think, at 313. So I don't think
I was
can
315 when I logged in, and I'm at
Yeah.
321 now.
I
Yeah,
was
I was-
317, and my off spec was 313.
Yep, I was I think I was 315, and now I'm like 331.
And even at 313, like I think you can get into Rabanastra. You can definitely get into the expert roulette. So
I need to finish unlocking stuff, because like basically exactly where I left off was the quest said go do this new dungeon, and at the moment I unlocked that, nobody was around, and I didn't really want to solo queue, so I never did the new dungeon from the last patch. So hopefully it's not hell to get that, since it's out of expert roulette.
It might not be great, but I'm sure if any of us are around, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
Well, my main quest is in the exact same spot, so
Well, that's half a
there is
party.
that.
That's half a group right there. Maybe.
Probably.
I guess it depends on if you two have different roles.
One of us actually finished leveling a samurai.
Yes, I did.
You got
I can
set.
do the thing as a samurai.
You're set.
But
Still
yeah,
working on my bard.
I've done one of the new dungeons, and it was pretty fun, and a little bit of the questing, but I haven't gotten completely caught up on it yet. So I'd be pretty happy with it so far. I'm in a very chill place with Final Fantasy right now. I mean, I also fell down the crafting hole.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely something. I had avoided it for a very long time, and now I have fallen down the hole.
I feel like crafting is reasonable up to a point until you can't buy the stuff off of our guild house vendor, and then it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing something even more silly than just leveling crafting, but I think I leveled or something before, and basically had leveled it up to the point that I could buy buying stuff off of our vendor, and then stopped because it seemed like complete nonsense after that. And this time around, I've completely lost my mind and have decided to level an alt. And on this alt, I am leveling everything together. So I've been playing for a couple weeks, and I have all of the gathering classes at just about 20. I have all the crafting classes somewhere between 16 and 25, and I have all the combat classes somewhere between 15 and 20. And it's pretty nonsense, but it's also a really relaxing way to pass the time.
It is. Crafting in that game is super relaxing. I mean, I didn't see anything other than the outside of the guild house, but...
Well, and that's like because I'm leveling the gathering at the same time, and I'm sort of trying at least a little bit to plan what I'm doing so that it feeds into all the crafting stuff. Like, I have my little spreadsheet of all the stuff I want to craft, and then I get on my gathering class, run around and gather a bunch of stuff up, and then go back and craft up a storm, and then rinse and repeat. And it's pretty nice, because as a low level character without this is an alt, so I don't have my high level jobs to fall back on, but just crafting the low level gear, it still sells on the market board. Like, I've been pleasantly surprised that the majority of the low level stuff, especially I think low level crafting and gathering gear, seems to sell really well.
I was going to say, most of the low-level combat gear is on vendors, but most low-level crafting and gathering gear is not.
Yeah. But it's been good, because it helps sort of fill in a couple of times where I've been like, screw it, I just want to buy this one stupid thing I need off of the market board instead of teleporting halfway across the world to go gather an orange. But yeah, it's been surprisingly fun. I mean, it's a piece of the game that I intentionally refused to touch for a really long time. And I don't know if I'm going to stick with it as I get higher up, but I think it has motivated me to maybe drop some money on my main to level up at least one crafting class, just so that I have it, can mess around with it some.
You only need one to do these tribe dailies.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I had been doing a little bit of the Exile dailies, but I still never finished, those, much less the Heavensward ones or the new one. There's a lot of content that I haven't touched because I haven't been messing with crafting at all.
I did really well getting all the gathering up to 50, but I don't know, like the 50 to 60 grind was way more annoying for gathering than the up to 50, because like the up to 50 was like super chill, and the 50 to 60 felt like I was in constant danger to gather the things.
I'm told that after 53, you earn the ability to turn in collectibles, and that's a pretty easy way to get up from there.
Yeah, it is.
But yes, gathering stuff in the Heavensward zones is occasionally hazardous.
So, unsurprisingly, World of Warcraft also released a patch at the same time as Final Fantasy XIV. And I have not done anything in it. Grace, what have you done in that patch?
I mean, in World of Warcraft right now, I have been running old raids for transmog gear. I did set aside some space for my soon-to-be new High Mountain Tauren and Fancy Crack Elf. But mostly I've just, even since the patch, I've been working on the reputation so that I can get the other two Alliance side unlocks, which, if I can vent for a moment, it's incredibly frustrating. Although, even though I'm mainly a Horde player, I want all of these things. And the two Horde races, the reputations you need to unlock them, are content that's been in the game for, a year now? Since launch almost? Not entirely, but for quite a long time. I guess part of the Nightfall quests.
I mean, the High Mountain stuff was in from launch, but the Nightborn, I think it was after Nighthold that you could get that Suramar quest done.
Yeah, because achievement that you need is basically the quest line that unlocked that raid. But still, like, that's been around for a month, and I've had it done. But on the Alliance side, you need reputation with the 2 factions on Argus, and it's been slow going, especially since I was not actively playing when that content was brand new, which at that time, I guess they had rotated the emissary quests in a way where there was pretty much always one or the other of those up as an emissary, and now it's gone back into the random rotation with everything that's available, so it's a little slower. But
well, what makes it so frustrating is Argosian Reach for the Void Elves. There's only one zone of the 3 subzones of Argus that has any quests for Argosian Reach.
Well, and they did. So one thing they updated was that the world quests that are just kill one boss guy now give reputation for both factions. So even if it says it's for the other faction, if you kill that guy, you'll get reputation with both. So, I mean, it's not much. I mean, if you're trying to get to Exalted, that 75 points is doesn't feel super worthwhile. But I figure it'll be a few more weeks, and but in the meantime, I can unlock my horde side things and start messing with them. The only real reason I haven't yet is I'm going to be doing some traveling soon, so I'm going to let my sublapse while I'm away and not bother spending the money on the expansion just yet, and when I get back I will be unlocking everything and leveling up the storm. I did try out a little bit of the level scaling, and it's at low levels, at least it feels quite good. I know I've heard very mixed things about it as you get into some of the expansions on, but for low levels, leveling feels great. And in terms of soloing old raids, I haven't tried to solo anything past Wrath of the Lich King since patch, so I can't speak to it too much, and anything that I did try to solo didn't feel any different than it did before, so that seems alright. I definitely heard some bad things about trying to solo raids and dungeons. I'm a little nervous. That's part of the reason why I hadn't tried anything that's later than that.
Yeah, the only thing I've done is Molten Core in my vain attempt to get the last binding for Windseeker.
I started down another path of nonsense in WoW, which is to try to get all of the raid sets on my priest. So I just finished. Let's see. I think I'm up to AQ40 now, and I've been bouncing around. So I got Molten Core done, and I got a couple. Well, I had a few from Wrath. Working my way through Burning Crusade, like basically everything from vanilla through Burning Crusade, I have within like one piece of gear that just won't drop on the set. And that's my long-term nonsense project in WoW right now.
Yeah, the thing I seem to be missing on most of the sets is the non-set pieces that are required to have it show up in your class hall.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of... especially on my priest, I had saved quite a lot of my tier from earlier stuff, but I never bothered to keep, like, belts and bracers and things, so I've had to go back for a lot of those. But it's been surprisingly fun. It's a nice, chill way to spend some time, and I don't know, I have definitely changed the way that I engage with World of Warcraft lately. Like, the beginning of Legion, I was super into it. I really enjoyed the raiding. I really enjoyed leveling, the questing. And at some point, it broke a bit for me. I'm not sure why. I think some of it is just the grind. But I'm still definitely enjoying running the old stuff.
I haven't really done anything since the patch because I have fallen into a Monster Hunter shaped hole.
Seems to be a lot of that going around.
I had tried a version on the Vita and a version on the 3DS and never really got into the game, but I thought, like, it would probably be something I would like if I could ever get past the, for lack of a better term, onboarding process. That game does not really do a great job of, or at least the previous versions did not do a great job.
The current one doesn't either, even though it is leaps and bounds ahead of the last few.
Yeah, it's true. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I have been finding out from quote-unquote Monster Hunter veterans that I had no clue from either the tutorials or just the game itself. But I don't know, like, I think having it on a quote-unquote real console instead of a handheld is a massive help for me in giving me some controls that feel really good to get into this game. I also feel like choosing longsword instead of greatsword, as I've always tried, has been a huge boon as well.
But there are all sorts of swords, but only one of them is great.
I would disagree. Longsword is pretty great.
Which one is the longsword?
The katana.
You didn't try it.
Okay.
Honestly, longsword is probably my best weapon, although I do really like greatsword.
I mean, it is a really hard-hitting weapon that also lets you be somewhat nimble. And nimble being a relative term.
It does decrease your movement speed, but not as much as greatsword or the axe version of Charge Blade do. It's like similar to hammer.
I was going to say, so I have not played much. Ash loaded a copy up on my PS4. We played right before the podcast. And I tried out in the training area the greatsword, which I really didn't like. The sword and shield, which is clever, but not really my thing. And then the right weapon, which was the hammer.
See, I knew you would really be a hammer player. Like, that seemed like your weapon all along.
Seriously.
Spin to win.
With this Monster Hunter, I think I've discovered why I have bounced off of most of the previous ones. They suggest a number of weapons that are good for beginners. Foolishly.
Longsword, dual blade, sword and shield.
Yeah.
Light bow gun.
Foolishly.
But not the insect glaive, not the charge blade, not the bow, not the gun lance. None of those things. Those are all fiddly, complicated nonsense. Cough.
It's true, they are.
It turns out that ignoring this game's warnings about its own complexity is what I needed to do.
And none of us were shocked.
Because, like,
shocked, but not much.
Insect glaive, hilarious. That weapon is amazing. Bow, incredible. Gun lance, still getting a little used to it, but the last 3 hunts I've gone with it, I've won without taking any damage. And have won faster than I have any other hunts. So I'm considering looking into more nonsense weapons.
Are you going to do the horn?
I don't think I'm going to do the horn because it's not really my...
It's a different sort of nonsense.
It's a different sort of nonsense, and it doesn't satisfy the thing that I like about almost all of those other weapons, which is I am extremely mobile. Because mobility is not a thing that you have almost any of in that game. And oh wow, do I feel not being mobile.
Hunting horn is deceptive when you draw it because you move about as fast as a greatsword, and except then you play the self-improvement song, and then you move faster than like most longsword.
Longsword feels glacially slow to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I draw the longsword and try to move around, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so slow, this hurts.
I don't know. Ash says I should try hunting horn, so I'm gonna probably try that next.
You might
I feel like you should give it a shot. You might like it.
You might like hunting horn. You might like hunting horn because it does a thing that you particularly like doing.
Buffs.
Yeah.
The thing that's kind of important to keep in mind, though, is that your attacks that give buffs are also really, really hard-hitting attacks.
Yes.
So don't just like stand in the back.
You're a barbarian.
You much like horn. I mean, much like hammer. Your job is to boot the snoot, and then also play some buffs.
Yeah. Hit the thing in the face and then sing a song about it. Whereas my job is to get on the monster's back as fast as possible and stay there for as long as possible. I'm real good at this thing. I have also learned that this game, to my great surprise, has some really liberal ideas about falling damage.
It doesn't have falling damage.
In that despite doing many things to harm you in all kinds of different ways, falling damage does not exist at all.
I really find it funny because as we were watching the opening, Ash kept mentioning, hey, this game doesn't have falling damage as ways of explaining some of the plots.
You fall out of a giant ship onto a big lava rock, and everybody else falls in that ship, presumably to wherever else, but you're all fine because nobody takes falling damage.
Yeah, I
Clearly,
realize
this game takes place on a planet where gravity is only a suggestion.
Oh, no. Gravity is definitely not a suggestion.
No, gravity is an important.
Gravity is a very harsh mistress.
Yeah, it is.
Except for, actually dealing damage to you.
So, thing I discovered this evening, fighting the stupid balloon bird. I don't know. All of the names of all of the creatures are nonsense, so I'm not bothering to commit the mental cycles to remember them. So I'm just using descriptive terms. So this stupid balloon bird, I hop on its back, like I hit it enough to hop on its back per my usual thing, and its response is to fly away, which is fine, whatever.
Where does it come down?
Well, this was one of the times where I discovered that in addition to just like stabbing things over and over again with my like pocket knife or whatever for 1 damage, I can also
eventually you will take out your actual weapon if you do that enough times.
Eventually you'll do that, but you can also move around on the thing while spinning your actual weapon, which will hit parts of them. And I don't know if this is only an insect glaive thing. It might be, but I could definitely do that with the insect glaive. Did you know that both the balloon birds, like balloon, I don't know, what do you call that thing when a frog inflates?
I have no idea.
It's like this fuzzy squirrel that's a puffer fish and also kind of a bird dragon.
An air sac.
It inflates
just
its
a
like
sack.
giant throat sack and
Air
flies
bladder.
around. Yeah, it inflates that thing, and it also has wings. You can remove both of these, which
So where did you come down again?
hard onto the ground because you can make sure it can't fly anymore.
But that's okay because you don't take falling damage, right?
Well, I don't, but the bird fell on me.
That can do damage to you.
That dealt all of my health and damage.
And presumably the bird survived because the bird didn't take falling damage.
The bird did not take any falling damage.
Well, I mean, he had, someone there to cushion the fall.
Yeah. So physics in this world is just nonsense. Okay.
Yeah.
Plenty of things can fall on you and do you a great harm.
Yes.
What's funny is like the amount of times that I just straight jump off things is way greater than the amount of times that I actually use like a grappling hook.
Oh yeah, I jump off of laughably fatal heights all the time, and just like hit the ground and roll and just keep going after like a 700-meter fall.
Yeah, that's about what I would expect.
But
what is the fastest mode of movement? I use it. It doesn't matter how silly or absurd it might be. I still use it.
Yeah,
That's how these things work.
but having a freaking bird fall on me will kill you from like that wasn't even that far a fall. It was just like hovering a little bit over the ground, but as soon as I cut its wing off, it fell on me and I died. I would feel worse about a game in which mostly I go around hunting and killing animals, where most of these animals not complete dicks.
I mean, Yaku is just trying, to get around and eat eggs of much bigger things, which, by the way, is the problem, because whenever I try to kill it, I find a much bigger thing angry at it.
This is why I hide in bushes.
Dude,
I let
monster battle is the best thing ever.
I will say, previous games generally, if you go on the map to kill a monster, that's the only big monster in the entire map. This game dedicates itself to having
Nope.
an ecology.
Yeah, well, it's actually sort of cool seeing the ecosystem in play, and like I think it's sort of funny the like ecological society part of things, where they try to justify that like, no, you're not just, hunting and killing everything in sight. It's for a reason. There's like ecological purposes behind it.
Like, I have absolutely used bigger things to my advantage when fighting other things. Like, the first time I got a Baroth kill, it was absolutely because Diablos decided to join in the fun. And I managed to avoid actually hitting Diablos and pissing it off. So it just helped me beat the shit out of Baroth.
I have a bad habit of getting distracted by the other big monster that comes out and chasing it down, and then going back to whatever it was I was fighting before.
My first kill of the stupid chameleon thing involved it running into the first monster. So I just sort of... Great Jagras was there, so I murdered it.
What,
and then it ran into... Yep. And then it ran into Anjanath, and I decided I didn't want no part of that.
Puke was like the easiest thing I have ever killed, other than getting poisoned.
That thing sucks so bad.
I managed to chop off its wings, and then its tail, and it just kind of flailed around.
Tail, it gets way easier.
Yeah, I chopped off its tail first, and then it was still annoying because it was flying off to another place, and I'd have to go up into the treetops to find it. And then I managed to chop off a wing, and then it was just simple after that. It just kind of flailed around and bled a lot.
That thing is materials for my next Sword and Shield, so I'm going to be killing it again.
Yeah, I mostly just want to get together and like go kill a bunch of monsters, be it in expedition or be it in individual quests. Because I need monster parts.
It's really neat seeing like all of every creature in that game is really well designed. I feel it has that feel of...
Creature design has always been one of the really strong points of the series.
Yeah. It's got a really... It feels like picking apart a raid boss. Like every single one of them. And they have raid boss-alike mechanics. Like that stupid flash lizard. Like, now those things are easy. But at first, that thing sucked.
The blue one?
Yeah. It's
like the weird antenna thing?
Yeah, it's a blue thing. It's a blue lizard, and it opens up like these flaps on its head and blinds the shit out of you. And it warned you, but it's not like I'm fast enough to do anything about it most of the time.
Well, the thing is like if you are good enough, all of these monsters have big tells that they're going to do a thing.
Yeah. Now that I can read...
You can assume that if Baroth is more than 10 feet from you, he's probably going to charge you in a second.
Yeah, Baroth sucked as a bow user.
So... I feel like I need to talk about how amazing palicos are, and how if you have a palico, you're a monster if you didn't name it after one of your cats, if you have cats. But, so the funny thing about it is like, I find all these fights way harder when I'm in there with 4 other hunters, or like 3 other hunters, than if I'm in there with just another hunter. Because palicos are overpowered. Like, their ability to distract things and their ability to summon in, like, vigor wasps and things like that.
They distract things, they heal you. They actually do not completely terrible damage.
Well,
yeah, those cats are legit.
It is way easier to get off a sharpening or something like that in a fight if you've got a palico distracting it. Sharpening mid-fight is absolutely a thing I do.
Oh, right. Sharpening. That's a thing people do.
Yep,
that is not a thing I do.
That is
if you play
super
Insect
important.
Blade, you'll start to learn it. That thing goes down so fast.
I have learned it with the Insect Blade, but mostly I've been using the bow. And
I mean, sharpening is super important with longsword. Like, it is super important.
Relatively fast-hitting weapons, dual blades, sword and shield, Insect Blade, longsword to an extent, have some serious sharpness problems. I guess hammer if you're spinning around a lot.
I mean, if you want to remove parts, you should really have a sharp weapon.
Other piece that I really like, I have gone well beyond the point where the giant iguana, the giant like frog iguana thing, is necessarily a challenge, but it is still worth my time to go hunt them because I still need the parts even way later.
I will say my proclivity for running around constantly just piddling in expeditions has been nice because it is rare, other than boss monster parts, that I need anything else. Because I have a huge stockpile sitting in my chest back at base.
Oh, I need like 1 billion mushrooms of various types and ores of various types. I should spend more time in expeditions, I guess.
I think I have something like, 200 iron ore or something like that.
Iron ore is not what I need.
But like I also have a lot of dragonite ore. No, I've got like tons
earth crystals, coral crystals.
I mean, I have plenty of Dragonite ore, I have plenty of coral crystals and coral or whatever that one is.
I don't have very much Dragonite, but I've only just gotten to that part of the world, so I'm not super worried about that.
There's a hidden place that I don't know if you've done anything with the Grimalkins yet.
I have seen hints that they exist, but I have not actually found them yet.
So I have only unlocked Grimalkins in the third area.
Okay.
But I kind of vaguely know where they are in the first two areas. But once you find the Grimalkins in the third area, there's a cave leading up to their camp, and it is full of ore. So that's the place to go farm. I named my Palico after Kinsey, which is my crazy cat, and I feel like it's fitting, completely fitting.
Kodra's brief time with the game may have involved naming his Palico after
my cat. Yes.
I mean, this is what you do. Like, if you did not do this thing, you were a monster.
Not everyone has cats.
Well, I understand. Like, if you have a cat, like, not everybody has a cat, and I understand that, and they're wrong.
I mean, I know a cat. I guess I could name it after that cat.
I also know a cat, and I won't be naming it after that cat.
I expect, Grace, that whenever you play this game, you will have a Palico named Neutrino.
Yeah, I will totally name my Palico after my cat. That's not a question.
I love... Okay, so there's this whole weird guild card mechanic. And one of my favorite things is running into other players' Palicos when I'm out doing expeditions. And then you, walk up to the Palico, and then your Palico goes over, and they talk for a second, and then they high-five, and now you've got a second Palico roaming around with you. And they're dressed in whatever outfit that player has their Palico in, so...
That second Palico should never, ever, ever accept whatever deal my Palico is offering. Just FYI.
So tomorrow I really have to focus on getting the not the Monster Hunter, but the Horizon Zero Dawn event done.
That's on my list as well. You gotta go a really long way to be able to do that, though.
I expect it will repeat because the last week's event quests are repeating 2 weeks from now. So I don't think once it's gone, it's gone. But I think it will be missing for 2 weeks or so.
Well, and there's supposedly other not Monster Hunter, Horizon Zero Dawn crossover things that are coming.
Yeah, likely for a bow and the alloy outfit.
Yeah.
Because right now the collaboration just gets you the Palico outfit and weapon.
And I wish that could be upgraded because it looks really cool to have a Palico Watcher.
I wish I had more control over the cosmetic appearance of my gear and my Palico's gear.
I mean, you start getting weird sets after a while. Like, I can dress my Palico up like a ladybug.
There
is no transmog or appearance system, really.
No.
There
but
is,
but it's only for special sets.
For the samurai set.
And I fully expect as the game goes on, there will be more of those sets that are unlocked through events.
I just don't understand why that's not just you made an armor piece. Now you can set its appearance.
There's a lot of bad looking armor in this game.
That's why I want it.
I just made a set thinking, oh, this is probably going to be perfectly reasonable. And instead, when it's on me, it looks like this stupid Onion Knight thing from Dark Souls.
You can preview it so you can avoid that.
I
don't care how good the stats are. If it looks that bad, I'm just not going to wear it.
I mean, I have a samurai suit. That's what I wear whenever I have shitty looking armor.
Yeah, I recently just turned off my samurai suit because I got this delightfully lush, collared tunic
from the bird bat thing.
Yeah, from the balloon bird.
That armor looks amazing.
It looks great. I only have the chest piece so far, but I want to hunt down a bunch more of those birds so I can build the rest of that set because that set looks great. I'm super stylish. It's amazing. It's so plush. It looks like I want it as a couch in my actual home.
In truth, I just want to run around and be friends with the bird bat thing because it looks so fluffy. I feel like I sort of want to play a different game where I just go on adventures with my Palico. But the problem with that is, it makes it so that I am, so far behind everyone, I think. Other than Kodra, because he just started.
Also me.
But Tam has already passed me. Tam has already passed me.
What? I don't think
I have
that's
not
true.
killed the bird bat thing.
Oh.
Like, I can spend hours roaming around in expeditions, kind of figuring out the lay of the land before I actually start doing any of the quests. I feel like I'm playing a vastly different game than I'm supposed to.
Man.
I mean, the bonus is, like, if I have trouble, everyone's going to be higher progressed than me, and, I mean, I can get help, but... Because that's, like, I feel like we need to talk about how awkward the grouping is in this game.
Oh my god.
It is not even reasonable, but...
It's one of those things that is improved, but not good enough.
Like, I now know how to do it, and it's nonsense. And
Game designers.
Nothing is labeled like it really should be. Like, when you go to the online session, none of that sounds like it's going to let you just jump worlds, basically.
Game designers, if you have a multiplayer game, you should make it easy to play multiplayer with your friends.
So, before we go into how it works now and how not good it is, let me go into how bad it used to be. You would have to meet up with, well, first we're talking 3DS, so we're talking friend codes. And you have to meet up in a sort of online hub with the people you want to go into a party with. You have to post a quest. The people would have to accept that quest, and then you could leave on it. Otherwise, you could leave without people if they didn't accept the quest you posted, because that was a good idea. And I feel like there's remnants of that in this game. Lots of remnants of that, quite frankly, in that they still have the gathering hall area where you can see other people and post quests. But they didn't bother to explain it, ever. If you go up there, they don't really explain it.
I largely feel like there's no point in ever going to the gathering hall.
If you like arm wrestling, I guess.
I mean, in part, like, the reason why I say that is, like, this game has some loading time problems. And so long as you don't go to the gathering hall, you can zip around the base pretty instantaneously. But if you go to the gathering hall, you have to go like you're loading into a new session.
You are,
which
because
takes
that's the only place that has... It's the only place where you can see other hunters. So they instance it off entirely.
Weren't we able to see each other in Astera?
Nope.
How do
You can see that other people posted quests if you're in the same online session.
Right.
You can't actually see their hunter.
So they have this whole thing with, like, sharing a meal with your friends. How do you even do that?
You can do it in the gathering hall.
Oh. But it tells you can do that in the canteen.
You can also do it actually in a quest. I don't know how to do it in the normal canteen.
But the whole system is just nonsense, because, like, I expected to form a party and join in the party and then go do things. Or queue together, or whatever. But that is not a logic that applies in this game. Now, the benefit of it is the way that, as screwed up as it is, you can oftentimes just get in on other hunters' sessions and get a boss kill quickly. And Reddit is outraged that that is a thing that you can do.
Whatever. If you don't want people joining, you can set people to not join.
I mean, they could have started a private session.
Or even then, you could just set a quest with a limit of one player.
That's what I do.
I honestly don't mind if people pop in on me. Because it doesn't happen often enough that, like, it's a nuisance. And if I'm bored, a lot of times I will pop in on other people just to get a boss kill.
It does technically raise the monster's health, but not by enough that I care.
Well, it raises the monster's health the first person that joins.
Yes. Going from single player to multiplayer raises health. Going from 2-player to any more than that does not. But you lose your pally goes at 3, so...
But basically, like, every night I've been rushing home to play the game. And unfortunately, like, I've been hitting the sack around 9, which means I'm out of all the reindeer games by all the West Coasters.
I don't think any of us have been playing together. I played very briefly with Ash, like, days ago. And I played very briefly with a few other folks this afternoon, but I've mostly just been going it alone.
I got in the session with Dalian yesterday, but same here.
Yeah,
Dalian
I've
been able to play.
And that was entertaining as hell. Like, I am super glad he joined, because I am not sure I would have known where the hell to go, because it wasn't exactly messaged very clearly. In fact, I decided to stream that, so, like, there's a lot of me just flailing around trying to figure out what the hell they mean when they say words. But there's something satisfying about, like, just the way the game feels that, I don't know, I'm hooked. It so much so that, like, I tried to go back and play Generations, and I did far better than I've ever done with Generations, but I feel like that was maybe still too far removed from the quality of life changes in Worlds.
Mm-hmm. I like Generations, and if the version comes to the Switch, I will probably pick it up because I really miss having like super moves basically and hunter styles, because those were really cool. But there are a lot of quality of life changes in this version. A lot.
Honestly, the version I will probably play next is Double Cross, if it ever makes it over here.
That's what I mean. Cross came over as Generations, so Double Cross will probably come over as some variant of Generations, if it comes over here ever. I'm not sure whether that's more or less likely at this point, with Capcom figuring out that they actually want to release things on the Switch, and also Monster Hunter suddenly becoming slightly more popular. Slightly. This is the best-selling entry in the series after one weekend. Oh, better than the lifetime of any other game they've released.
That's
So
pretty
it'll be interesting
impressive.
to see where they go, what they do going forward.
Actually, advertise their games.
I mean, there is that. Also, pretend that human beings actually want to play them.
I mean, just think what their sales would have looked like if they had also released on PC at the same time.
Worse on consoles. Some people are going to buy it again. Like,
I guess that's true.
as much as I'm
I
annoyed
will
at that
buy
process,
it again.
as much as I'm annoyed at that practice, it seems to be worth it.
I
Frankly,
mean, I will straight up buy it again when it's on PC.
So
we'll
also
see.
the PC market is smaller
Yes.
by a lot.
But it's just being like, there are several people that I know that are still like in a holding pattern, wanting it to come out on PC and not wanting to do the console version.
And those people will buy it, and people who want to play with them will buy it again. So, marketing-wise, it's annoying, but it seems to be working.
I will probably play it with a controller on PC. Because I don't fully believe they're going to have good controls with a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, that definitely remains to be seen. What else has Capcom released on PC anyway? I guess the Devil May Cry series. I don't know how well those control a keyboard and mouse.
I used a controller. I mean, also, I'm not used to using a controller with this game. Like, with Destiny, it was a serious adjustment period for me to go back to using mouse and keyboard instead of a controller, because I'd gotten so used to just the way it worked on controller.
I'm concerned about the PC release of this game because this strikes me as the kind of game that would not include invert Y in its options.
It does on console. But you use mouse control.
I'm talking about mouse control. I have played plenty of games that have come over from Japan where even if they have invert Y on the console version, they do not have it on the mouse for their PC port.
Because nobody actually understands that. Like, I don't understand that.
I don't understand it at all. I mean, that's not to say, like, I understand how important it is to you. It's just, like, if I were releasing a game, even though I know you want it, there's a possibility that I would forget that that's a thing.
That's why there are certification checklists.
All in all, it's really freaking good, and there are a lot of people playing it.
Look forward to getting some more time with it.
It's a fun game. It's a lot more fun than I expected, considering that it combines like 4 things that I don't really tend to get into all that much.
I think the biggest problem for me right now is, like, in my current setup, my current modified setup, I don't have a great way to hook up a headset to my PS4, so I have to solve that problem, because the likelihood that people can use PC voice chat while doing it is not great.
It's basically 0 for me, but I will say that I picked up. Actually, I guess it's not technically not 0. I have a wireless headset now. I could probably rig something up.
I think tomorrow morning I will play Reroute how I had my headset run and see if I can stretch it over here, since I now use the television that I use for, PC as also my console television.
Yeah, I did. This game actually did get me to pick up a PS4 headset so that I can play games in which voice communication might be a nice thing to have.
Well, anyone have any other topics that we want to discuss before we wrap things up?
I think we're good.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the show. It was good to get back and record a normal one after a long absence. And we will be back next week, probably with some more nonsense that we've played in the meantime. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See ya.